The Krillian battlecruiser Dominion's Edge hung in the void like a metallic predator, its hull gleaming with the malevolent beauty of advanced alien engineering. Commander Zexthal stood on the bridge, his 6 arms folded in satisfaction as he gazed at the primitive blue world spinning below. Earth, the birthplace of the species that had somehow managed to spread across 3-star systems before the galactic hegemony had taken notice. Pathetic, Zexthal clicked in his native tongue, watching the tactical display show Earth's defenses. A few orbital stations, some missile platforms, and what appeared to be primitive kinetic weapons. Nothing that could penetrate Krillian energy shields. Nothing that posed any real threat to a legion of the hegemony's finest warriors. The bridge hummed with activity as his subordinates prepared for the ground assault. 2,000 Krillian shock troops stood ready in the deployment bays, each equipped with plasma rifles, energy shields, and powered armor that could shrug off most primitive projectile weapons. They had conquered 17 worlds in the past cycle alone. This would be no different. "Sir," reported Subcommander Yilnock, her mandibles clicking nervously. "Long-range scans detect human military installations across the primary continent. Their weapons appear to be chemical-based projectile systems." Zexthal's laugh was a harsh chittering sound that echoed across the bridge. Chemical projectiles, gunpowder and metal slugs. It was like bringing spears to fight fusion cannons. The humans hadn't even achieved proper energy weapons yet, still relying on the crude technology their ancestors had used centuries ago. "Deploy the Legion," he commanded. "Full assault formation. I want this world pacified within 6 rotations." The massive deployment bays opened like hungry mouths, disgorging 2,000 drop pods toward Earth's surface. Each pod contained a Krillian warrior, 7 feet tall, armed with weapons that could melt through steel and protected by armor that had never been penetrated by primitive kinetic weapons. They fell through Earth's atmosphere like burning stars, their heat shields glowing white-hot as they plunged toward the surface. The target was a human military installation in what the natives called North America. Intelligence reports indicated it was a training facility for their Special Operations Forces. Zexthal had chosen it specifically because eliminating their elite troops first would demoralize the rest of the planet's defenders. It would be a demonstration of Krillian superiority that would make the eventual surrender swift and decisive. As the first wave of drop pods crashed into the forested terrain around the base, Zexthal monitored the tactical feeds with anticipation. His warriors emerged from their pods like avenging angels, their plasma rifles charging with deadly energy. The human base was a collection of simple concrete and metal structures, utterly defenseless against Krillian technology. "Sir," Yilnock reported, "first contact initiated. Human defenders are responding." On the tactical display, Zexthal watched as his warriors advanced through the forest toward the base perimeter. Suddenly, red markers began appearing on his screen. Casualty indicators. "What?" Zexthal's compound eyes focused on the display in confusion. "Report." "Sir, we're taking fire from concealed positions. The humans appear to be using—" "Wait, this can't be right." "What is it?" Zexthal demanded. "The readings indicate they're using projectile weapons, chemical propellants firing metal slugs, but our warriors are falling." "Impossible. Krillian armor could withstand anything short of plasma fire or fusion weapons. Primitive kinetic weapons couldn't penetrate their energy shields, let alone their physical armor." Yet the casualty markers continued to multiply across his tactical display. Through the helmet cameras of his surviving warriors, Zexthal watched in growing disbelief as invisible enemies picked off his troops from the shadows. The humans weren't even showing themselves, striking from concealment with weapons that should have been utterly ineffective. "Increase power to shields," he commanded. "Return fire on all suspected positions." His warriors responded, their plasma rifles lighting up the forest with deadly energy beams. Trees exploded into flame, rocks melted into slag, and the very air crackled with destructive force. Yet still his soldiers continued to fall, picked off one by an enemy they couldn't even see. Major Sarah Chen pressed herself against the rough bark of an ancient oak tree, her ghillie suit making her virtually invisible in the dappled shadows of the forest floor. Through her scope, she watched another alien warrior advance through the underbrush, its strange armor gleaming with an otherworldly energy field. The creature was tall and insectoid, moving with an alien grace that spoke of evolution on a world very different from Earth. She breathed slowly, steadily, just as she had been trained. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Her heart rate remained steady at 60 beats per minute, the mark of a sniper who had learned to control her body's responses under stress. The Barrett M82 in her hands was a weapon her grandfather might have recognized, a 50 caliber anti-materiel rifle that used the same basic principles humans had employed for over a century. The alien stopped, scanning the forest with what appeared to be advanced sensors. Its weapon was unlike anything in Earth's arsenal, a sleek device that hummed with barely contained energy. Sarah had watched it melt through tree trunks like they were made of butter. But for all its advanced technology, the creature inside that fancy armor was still made of flesh and blood. She adjusted her aim slightly, compensating for wind and distance. The alien's energy shield flickered around it like a soap bubble made of light. According to the briefing, those shields could stop energy weapons and most conventional ammunition. But the people who designed them had never encountered a tungsten core armor-piercing round traveling at 2,800 feet per second. The rifle kicked against her shoulder like an old friend. The report echoed through the forest, a sound that had been striking fear into the hearts of enemies for generations. Through her scope, she watched the impossible happen. The alien's energy shield sparked and failed as the massive bullet punched through it like it wasn't even there. The tungsten core, designed to penetrate tank armor, treated the creature's advanced battle suit like tissue paper. The alien dropped without a sound, its weapon clattering to the forest floor. "Tango down," Sarah whispered into her radio. Around her, 19 other members of the 75th Ranger Regiment's most elite sniper unit were delivering the same message. They had been preparing for this moment since the alien ships first appeared in Earth's orbit 3 days ago. While the politicians talked and the generals planned, the Rangers had been moving into position. Sergeant First Class Marcus Rodriguez lay motionless in a hide he had constructed from fallen leaves and forest debris. His M24 sniper weapon system was a dinosaur compared to Sarah's Barrett, but it had served him faithfully through 3 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Syria. The 7.6 Tomb rounds it fired were nothing special by modern standards, just lead and copper jacketed bullets propelled by nitrocellulose. But they had been putting enemies down for decades, and today would be no different. Through his scope, he watched a group of 3 aliens advance in formation, their energy weapons sweeping the forest for targets. They moved with the confidence of soldiers who had never faced a real threat, troops accustomed to overwhelming technological superiority. Rodriguez had seen that arrogance before, in the faces of insurgents who thought their IEDs and rocket launchers made them invincible. He selected his target, leading it slightly to account for movement. The alien's armor was impressive, covered in what looked like some kind of reactive plating that shifted and adjusted as it moved. But armor was only as good as the weakest point, and every suit had joints, seams, places where protection had to be sacrificed for mobility. The M24 spoke with authority, its muzzle flash hidden by a carefully positioned suppressor. The bullet found the gap between the alien's helmet and chest plate, punching through whatever passed for its neck. The creature spun and fell, its weapon firing wildly into the canopy as dying reflexes triggered the firing mechanism. Its companions immediately took cover, but Rodriguez was already shifting position, moving to a hide he had prepared 50 meters away. The key to sniper warfare wasn't the shot, it was what happened after the shot. Move, relocate, survive to fight again. Captain William "Bull" Henderson had spent 20 years in special operations, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the jungles of South America. He had fought insurgents, terrorists, drug cartels, and human trafficking networks, but he had never fought aliens. Still, as he watched his snipers systematically pick apart the enemy formation, he felt a familiar surge of pride. Technology could change, enemies could evolve, but the fundamentals of warfare remained constant. Training, discipline, superior position, and most importantly, the willingness to close with and destroy the enemy. The aliens had advanced technology, but they fought like an army that had never faced serious resistance. They moved in predictable patterns, used their weapons carelessly, and relied too heavily on their technological advantages. Henderson had seen the same mistakes from conventional armies fighting guerrilla forces. When you became accustomed to overwhelming superiority, you forgot how to adapt to unexpected challenges. "Ghost One, this is Overwatch," he spoke quietly into his radio. "How's our ammunition situation?" "Still good, sir," came Sarah's voice. These things go down with one shot if you place it right. Their shields don't seem designed for kinetic penetrators. Henderson nodded grimly. The briefings had suggested that alien defenses were optimized for energy weapons. In a galaxy where most civilizations had moved beyond projectile weapons, the aliens had probably never encountered anything like a high-velocity kinetic penetrator. It was like bringing a musket to fight an army equipped with steel plate armor. The armor was designed to stop swords and arrows, not bullets. "All units maintain fire discipline," he ordered. "Make every shot count. We're outnumbered 100 to 1, so we need to be smarter and deadlier than they are." On the tactical display aboard the Dominion's Edge, Commander Zexthal watched his legion being systematically destroyed by an enemy he couldn't understand. His warriors were dying faster than they could return fire, picked off by weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their defenses. The humans were using primitive chemical projectiles, the same basic technology their ancestors had employed for centuries. Yet somehow, impossibly, those ancient weapons were cutting through Krillian armor like it was made of cloth. "Sir," Yilnok reported, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "We've lost over 300 warriors. The humans are using some kind of advanced kinetic weapons." "Impossible," Zexthal snarled. "Our intelligence reports confirmed they haven't developed energy weapons. They're still using chemical propellants and metal projectiles." "Yes, sir, but the projectiles are different. They're designed specifically to penetrate energy shields and armor plating. Our defenses were never intended to stop this type of attack." Zexthal felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of warfare: doubt. His energy shields were state-of-the-art technology, capable of deflecting plasma bolts and particle beams. His armor was forged from materials that could withstand the heat of a star's corona. Yet primitive humans with primitive weapons were cutting through his forces like a fusion blade through paper. "Deploy the second wave," he commanded. "All warriors increase shield power and advance in dispersed formation." But even as he gave the orders, Zexthal knew something had gone terribly wrong. The humans weren't supposed to be able to fight back effectively. They were supposed to be a primitive species, easily overwhelmed by superior Krillian technology. Yet somehow, 20 humans with antiquated weapons were holding off a force of 2,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warriors. In the forest below, the deadly dance continued. The Rangers moved like ghosts through terrain they knew intimately, striking from concealment and vanishing before the aliens could respond. Every shot was carefully planned, every position meticulously chosen. They fought with the patience of hunters and the precision of surgeons, turning the aliens' technological superiority against them. The Krillians had come to Earth expecting an easy victory against a primitive enemy. Instead, they had walked into a killing field prepared by warriors who had spent generations perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. The aliens possessed superior technology, but the humans possessed something far more dangerous: the knowledge that sometimes the oldest weapons were still the deadliest. Staff Sergeant Miguel Santos crouched in the ruins of what had once been an alien drop pod, its metal still warm from atmospheric entry. The cylindrical craft was a marvel of engineering, its hull composed of materials that Earth scientists could only dream of creating. Yet for all its technological sophistication, it had delivered its occupant directly into a carefully prepared kill zone. Santos examined the dead alien warrior inside, taking note of the creature's anatomy and equipment. The being was tall and graceful, with 4 arms and compound eyes that spoke of evolution on a world with multiple suns. Its armor was sleek and form-fitting, covered in circuits that still glowed faintly with residual energy. The weapon beside it was unlike anything in Earth's arsenal, a crystalline device that hummed with potential even in death. But advanced technology couldn't compensate for tactical stupidity. The aliens had landed in the open, announced their presence with massive energy signatures, and advanced in predictable formations. They fought like an army that had never faced serious resistance, troops accustomed to technological dominance who had forgotten the basic principles of small unit tactics. Santos stripped the alien of its equipment, particularly interested in what appeared to be communication devices and sensors. Intelligence would want to examine everything, but first he needed to understand how these creatures coordinated their attacks. Knowledge was power, and in asymmetric warfare, intelligence was often more valuable than ammunition. His radio crackled quietly. "Ghost 7, this is Overwatch. What's your status?" "Position secure," Santos replied. One enemy KIA, equipment secured for analysis. These things broadcast their positions like Christmas trees. I can track their movement patterns from here. Captain Henderson's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Good work. What's your assessment of enemy capabilities? Santos studied the alien's weapon more carefully. It was clearly designed for devastating effect, probably capable of punching through tank armor or reducing infantry to atoms. But it was also heavy, unwieldy, and appeared to have a limited rate of fire. Like many advanced weapon systems, it sacrificed practicality for raw power. Sir, these weapons are impressive but impractical. High energy output but slow cycling time. They're designed for overwhelming firepower against conventional targets, not precision work against entrenched positions. Their armor is sophisticated but optimized for energy weapons. Kinetic penetrators seem to go right through their shields like they're not even there. It was a classic case of generals preparing to fight the last war. The aliens had designed their equipment to counter threats they understood, energy weapons and plasma cannons wielded by other advanced civilizations. They had never encountered an enemy still using chemical propellants and metal projectiles, so their defenses had no specific countermeasures for kinetic weapons. 3 kilometers away, Corporal James, Reaper, Morrison lay perfectly still in a spider hole he had spent 6 hours preparing. The camouflaged position was invisible from more than 10 feet away, constructed using techniques he had learned during his tour in Iraq and refined during training exercises in Georgia's pine forests. Around him, the forest looked exactly as nature intended, but every branch and leaf had been carefully arranged to provide concealment while maintaining clear fields of fire. Through his scope, Morrison watched a group of 8 aliens approach his position. They moved cautiously now, having learned that the forest held deadly surprises. Their energy weapons swept constantly, scanning for threats, but they were looking for technology, not for a man lying motionless in a hole covered with natural vegetation. Morrison's weapon was a testament to human engineering simplicity. The Remington 700 in various configurations had been putting precision fire on target for over 50 years. The rifle in his hands was chambered in .300 Winchester Magnum, a cartridge that could drop an elk at 800 yards or punch through light armor at closer range. The scope was military grade, but based on principles humans had understood for decades. He selected his target carefully, choosing the alien that appeared to be leading the group. Through the scope, he could see the creature's alien features clearly, compound eyes that glittered like jewels and mandibles that moved in what might have been speech. For a moment, Morrison felt a strange kinship with the enemy. They were soldiers, following orders, far from home and fighting for causes their leaders had chosen. Then he remembered the orbital bombardment of Melbourne, the plasma strikes that had turned entire city blocks into glass, and the kinship evaporated. These creatures had come to his world uninvited, armed with weapons designed to exterminate his species. They deserved no more consideration than any other invader. The rifle spoke with quiet authority, its suppressor reducing the muzzle signature to a dull thump barely audible over the forest's natural sounds. The bullet crossed the intervening distance in less than half a second, striking the alien leader center mass. The creature's energy shield flared and failed. Overwhelmed by kinetic energy, it wasn't designed to deflect. The tungsten core penetrator punched through advanced armor like it was made of cardboard. The alien dropped instantly, its nervous system severed by massive trauma. Its companions immediately took cover, but they were looking in the wrong direction, scanning for energy signatures that didn't exist. Morrison was already adjusting his aim, selecting his next target from among the confused and disorganized survivors. Aboard the Dominion's Edge, Commander Zexthal stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. His legion, 2,000 of the hegemony's finest warriors, was being systematically destroyed by a handful of primitive humans using weapons that belonged in a museum. The casualty reports streaming in defied all logic and military experience. "Sir," reported Subcommander Yilnock, "we've now lost over 600 warriors. The humans appear to be using a coordinated sniper network with overlapping fields of fire." "Snipers?" Zexthal's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Single warriors picking off entire squads from concealment." "Yes, sir. Our sensors can detect the kinetic projectiles after they're fired, but the humans aren't using any energy signatures we can track. They're effectively invisible until they attack." Zexthal had studied human military history during the voyage to Earth. He knew they had used such tactics before, individual warriors stalking and killing from concealment. But those had been primitive conflicts, fought with crude weapons against equally primitive enemies. This was supposed to be a technological mismatch, advanced civilization against barbaric primitives. Snipers with chemical projectiles shouldn't have been able to threaten warriors equipped with energy shields and powered armor. What about our countermeasures? Deploy sensor drones, establish overlapping coverage patterns. Sir, we've deployed all available reconnaissance assets. The humans appear to be using some form of advanced camouflage technology. Our sensors detect natural forest signatures only. Natural signatures, Zexthal's compound eyes narrowed. You mean they're not using technological camouflage? No, sir. They appear to be using organic materials to blend with the environment. Leaves, branches, mud, and other natural substances. The implications were staggering. Advanced civilizations had moved beyond such primitive techniques millennia ago, relying instead on energy fields and technological solutions for concealment. The idea that trained warriors would cover themselves with dirt and vegetation like primitive hunters was almost incomprehensible. Yet it was working. His sophisticated sensors, designed to detect advanced camouflage systems and energy signatures, were useless against enemies who had reverted to techniques older than civilization itself. It was like trying to track ghosts with instruments designed to detect starships. Master Sergeant Patricia, Ice Coleman had been a sniper for 15 years, serving in conflicts across 3 continents. She had eliminated targets from distances that pushed the boundaries of human capability, threading bullets through windows from over a mile away. But this was different. This wasn't precision shooting against human targets. This was warfare against an alien invasion force armed with weapons that could atomize a human being. Coleman had positioned herself in the crown of a massive oak tree, 120 feet above the forest floor. Her hide was a masterwork of natural camouflage, constructed entirely from materials found in the immediate area. From any angle, she appeared to be nothing more than a cluster of leaves and branches, indistinguishable from the natural growth around her. Below, alien warriors moved through her sector like pieces on a chessboard. Coleman had been observing their patrol patterns for over an hour, noting how they responded to threats, and identifying their command structure. The aliens were disciplined and well-trained, but they were fighting by rules that didn't apply to this battlefield. They expected their enemies to use energy weapons, so they deployed countermeasures designed for energy signatures. They expected advanced technology, so they searched for electronic emissions and artificial materials. They expected conventional tactics, so they prepared for direct confrontation with organized military units. Instead, they faced an enemy that had reverted to techniques humanity had used for thousands of years, updated with modern precision and training. The Rangers weren't fighting a conventional battle. They were hunting, using skills that predated civilization itself. Coleman's target appeared at the edge of her field of fire, an alien warrior that seemed to be directing the search patterns of others. Through her scope, she could see the creature's alien features clearly, its movements suggesting intelligence and tactical awareness. This one was dangerous, a leader who might eventually figure out how to counter the Ranger's advantages. She adjusted her scope for wind and distance, breathing slowly and steadily. The shot was challenging, nearly 800 meters through dense forest canopy, but well within her capabilities. The rifle she carried was a custom-built precision instrument, chambered for a cartridge that could deliver devastating kinetic energy at extreme range. The trigger broke cleanly, surprising her even though she had been expecting it. Through the scope, she watched the bullet's trace as it cut through leaves and branches, following a carefully calculated trajectory. The alien's energy shield sparked and overloaded as the tungsten core penetrator punched through advanced defenses that had never been designed to stop a chunk of metal traveling at supersonic velocity. The creature dropped like a marionette with cut strings, its weapon clattering to the forest floor. Around it, other aliens immediately took cover, but they were scanning for threats at ground level, searching for enemies using conventional tactics. Coleman was already selecting her next target, a warrior attempting to coordinate a response to her attack. The aliens were learning, adapting their tactics to account for invisible enemies, but they were thinking in terms of technology and advanced countermeasures. They couldn't comprehend an enemy that had deliberately chosen primitive techniques because those techniques were more effective than advanced alternatives. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Bear Thompson monitored the tactical situation from his command post, a carefully concealed position that provided complete oversight of the battlefield. Around him, radio operators maintained communication with all 20 Rangers, coordinating their movements and providing real-time intelligence updates. The operation was unfolding exactly as planned, a masterpiece of preparation and execution. Thompson had spent months studying everything Earth's intelligence services had been able to determine about Krillian military doctrine. Their tactics were sophisticated but predictable, based on overwhelming technological superiority and conventional force-on-force engagement. They were accustomed to fighting enemies who used similar technologies and tactics, civilizations that had developed along comparable technological pathways. But humanity had taken a different approach to warfare. While other species had abandoned kinetic weapons in favor of energy-based systems, humans had continued to refine and improve projectile technology. While other civilizations had moved beyond camouflage and concealment in favor of technological solutions, human special operations forces had perfected the art of becoming invisible in natural environments. The result was a fundamental mismatch between alien expectations and human capabilities. The Krillians had come prepared to fight an advanced technological civilization. Instead, they faced an enemy that combined advanced training and tactics with deliberately primitive weapons and techniques. "Sir," reported the communications sergeant, "all units report successful engagement. Enemy casualties are mounting rapidly. No friendly casualties reported." Thompson nodded grimly. The aliens were paying a terrible price for their overconfidence, but the battle was far from over. 2,000 enemy warriors were still on the planet, and eventually they would adapt to human tactics. The key was to inflict maximum casualties while the confusion and surprise lasted, to eliminate as many enemies as possible before they could mount an effective response. "All units maintain pressure but prepare for tactical withdrawal. The enemy will eventually figure out how to counter our advantages. When they do, we need to be ready to shift to the next phase of operations." The next phase would be even more challenging. Once the aliens adapted to human sniper tactics, the Rangers would have to transition to close-quarters combat, using the forest terrain to maximum advantage. It would be a test of human ingenuity against alien technology, primitive weapons against advanced defenses. But Thompson was confident in his people. They had trained for this scenario, preparing for asymmetric warfare against a technologically superior enemy. They knew the forest better than any alien invader ever could, and they possessed something that no amount of advanced technology could replace: the determination to defend their homeworld against any threat, no matter how overwhelming it might seem. The hunt had begun, and humanity would not yield. The forest had become a graveyard of alien ambition. Across 15 square kilometers of North Georgia woodland, the broken remains of Krillian drop pods lay scattered like metallic fruit fallen from some technological tree. Between them, the bodies of alien warriors testified to the effectiveness of human marksmanship and the deadly surprise of encountering an enemy that fought by rules they had never learned to counter. Commander Zexthal stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at displays that showed a tactical situation beyond his worst nightmares. Of the 2,000 warriors he had deployed 12 hours earlier, fewer than 400 remained alive. His elite legion, veterans of 17 successful planetary invasions, was being systematically annihilated by 20 primitive humans armed with weapons that belonged in a museum. "Sir," Subcommander Yilnock's voice carried the strain of watching an impossible situation unfold. "Long-range scans indicate the humans are repositioning. They appear to be consolidating their forces for a final assault." "Impossible," Zexthal snarled, though he no longer believed his own words. 20 warriors cannot assault 400. Their weapons are primitive, their technology is inferior. They cannot possibly hope to engage us in direct combat. But even as he spoke, Zexthal knew he was wrong. These humans had already done the impossible, turning every assumption about technological superiority on its head. They had proven that advanced weapons were useless against enemies that couldn't be detected, that energy shields were worthless against threats they weren't designed to counter, and that superior numbers meant nothing when your forces were being picked off one by invisible hunters. Captain Henderson crouched beside a fallen tree trunk, studying the tactical map spread across his tablet. Around him, his 19 remaining Rangers had gathered in a natural depression that provided concealment from aerial observation. They had been fighting for 18 hours straight, systematically destroying the alien invasion force through superior fieldcraft and precision shooting. But the easy phase was over. "Listen up," Henderson said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of 2 decades in special operations. "We've blooded them good, but they're learning. They're consolidating their remaining forces and adapting their tactics. Phase 2 starts now." The Rangers nodded grimly. They all knew what Phase 2 meant. No more sniping from concealment, no more picking off isolated enemies from maximum range. The aliens had finally figured out how to counter their advantages, deploying sensors that could detect kinetic projectiles and using massed fire to suppress suspected sniper positions. The time for subtlety was over. "We're going to hit them where they think they're safe," Henderson continued. "Their command post is in Grid Square Charlie 7, approximately 600 aliens consolidated in a defensive perimeter. They think their numbers and firepower give them security. They're wrong." Sergeant First Class Rodriguez checked his equipment one final time. Instead of his precision sniper rifle, he now carried an M4 carbine loaded with armor-piercing ammunition and equipped with an M203 grenade launcher. Strapped to his back was a pack filled with fragmentation grenades, explosive charges, and enough ammunition to sustain a running firefight. The tools had changed, but the mission remained the same: close with and destroy the enemy. "Sir," Rodriguez asked, "what about their energy weapons? In close combat, their firepower advantage becomes even more pronounced." Henderson smiled grimly. "That's where human ingenuity comes in. We're not going to fight them on their terms. We're going to use their technological dependence against them." He pointed to specific locations on the tactical map. "Intelligence analysis indicates their weapons require significant power sources to operate effectively. Those power sources are vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse weapons. We're going to blind them, then hit them while they're trying to figure out what happened." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Homemade electromagnetic pulse devices, constructed from readily available electronic components, would disable the aliens' advanced systems long enough for the Rangers to close to contact. Once within effective range of human weapons, the technological advantage would shift dramatically. Major Sarah Chen adjusted the shoulder strap of the device she carried, a 20-pound collection of capacitors, coils, and electronic triggers that represented humanity's answer to alien technological superiority. The EMP generator was crude by galactic standards, built using principles that any electronics student could understand. But it didn't need to be sophisticated. It just needed to generate enough electromagnetic interference to disrupt alien electronics long enough for human weapons to do their work. "Remember," she said to the Rangers around her, "these devices have a limited range and duration. Once we trigger them, we'll have maybe 30 seconds before their systems come back online. That's our window. 30 seconds to cross 600 meters of open ground, penetrate an alien defensive perimeter, and engage 400 enemy warriors in close combat using weapons that were primitive by galactic standards." It was a mission that violated every principle of conventional tactics, a plan that should have resulted in complete annihilation for the attacking force. But these weren't conventional soldiers fighting a conventional enemy. These were Rangers, trained in the most demanding military schools on Earth and selected for their ability to accomplish impossible missions under impossible circumstances. They had trained for this scenario, preparing for asymmetric warfare against technologically superior enemies. More importantly, they were fighting for their homeworld against an invasion force that had already demonstrated its willingness to commit genocide against human civilians. Staff Sergeant Santos activated his night vision system, scanning the alien perimeter through enhanced optics that turned darkness into green-tinted clarity. The Krillians had established a defensive position that would have been impregnable against conventional assault, overlapping fields of fire protected by energy shields and supported by advanced sensor networks. But conventional assault wasn't what they were planning. "Phase lines Alpha through Delta are confirmed," Santos reported. "Enemy positions exactly where intelligence predicted. They're clustering around their command vehicles, using them for cover and power distribution." It was exactly what Henderson had hoped for. The aliens were thinking in terms of conventional warfare, establishing defensive positions that maximized their technological advantages while minimizing their exposure to human weapons. But they were also concentrating their forces, making them vulnerable to the kind of coordinated assault that Rangers specialized in. "All units stand by for Phase 2 initiation," Henderson commanded. "Remember speed and violence of action. We go in hard and fast, disrupt their command structure, then withdraw before they can organize a response." The forest fell silent except for the whisper of wind through leaves and the distant hum of alien technology. 20 human warriors prepared to assault a force 20 times their number, armed with weapons their grandfathers would have recognized, and tactics developed in conflicts fought before the aliens even knew Earth existed. At precisely 2300 hours, the electromagnetic pulse devices detonated simultaneously across the alien perimeter. The night lit up with invisible energy as electromagnetic fields collapsed alien shield generators and fried delicate electronic systems. For 30 seconds, the most technologically advanced military force in the galaxy was reduced to the same level as any primitive army, their weapons useless and their sensors blind. The Rangers moved like avenging spirits through the disabled alien positions. M4 carbines chattered with deadly precision as armor-piercing rounds punched through alien battle suits that had suddenly lost their power. Grenades exploded among confused enemy formations, sending shrapnel through crowds of warriors who had been clustered for mutual support, but now found themselves vulnerable to area effect weapons. Corporal Morrison vaulted over a disabled alien vehicle, his rifle tracking targets with mechanical precision. An alien warrior stumbled out of a command shelter, its weapon dead in its hands, compound eyes wide with shock. Morrison's rifle spoke twice, center-mass hits that sent the creature spinning to the ground. "Contact front," he called out, engaging a group of aliens who were attempting to restore power to their weapons. "Multiple targets, weapons free." Behind him, Specialist Jackson armed a thermite grenade and tossed it into the alien command vehicle. The device ignited with brilliant fury, melting through advanced electronics and reducing sophisticated computer systems to slag. Secondary explosions followed as stored energy cells overloaded and power distribution systems failed catastrophically. Master Sergeant Coleman moved through the chaos like a force of nature, her rifle spitting death with every trigger pull. Around her, alien warriors struggled to understand what had happened to their technological superiority, their advanced weapons reduced to expensive clubs by electromagnetic interference they had never prepared for. "Command vehicle neutralized," she reported, watching flames consume what had been the aliens' primary communication center. "Enemy command and control is compromised." The 30-second window had become a massacre. Alien warriors, deprived of their technological advantages and caught completely off guard by human tactics, fell like wheat before a scythe. The Rangers moved with lethal efficiency through positions that had been designed to withstand energy weapons and plasma cannons, not close-quarters assault by troops armed with kinetic weapons and explosive devices. Commander Zexthal watched his command structure disintegrate in real time as reports flooded in from the surface. His communications network was failing, his sensor arrays were offline, and his warriors were being slaughtered by an enemy that had somehow negated every technological advantage the hegemony possessed. "Sir," Yilnock's voice was barely controlled panic. "All ground units report massive casualties. The humans have somehow disabled our electronics and are conducting close assault operations. Our warriors can't fight back effectively without their powered systems." Zexthal stared at the tactical display in horrified fascination. 20 primitive humans had not only held off his entire legion, they had gone on the offensive and were systematically destroying what remained of his forces. It was impossible, a violation of everything he understood about warfare and technology. "Orbital bombardment," he commanded, his voice hollow with defeat. "Glass the entire area, kill everything down there." "Sir," Yilnock hesitated, "that will also eliminate our own warriors." "Our warriors are already dead," Zexthal replied bitterly. 20 primitives with primitive weapons have destroyed the finest military force in the galaxy. If we cannot defeat them with superior technology and overwhelming numbers, then we must ensure they do not survive to teach their tactics to other humans. The orbital bombardment began 37 minutes later, plasma cannons and fusion warheads reducing 40 square kilometers of Georgia forest to a crater of melted glass and radioactive ash. But by then, the Rangers had completed their mission and withdrawn to previously prepared positions beyond the target area. Behind them, they left the scattered remains of a Krillian legion that had learned too late that technological superiority meant nothing against an enemy that refused to fight by the expected rules. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to face a primitive species armed with crude weapons and simple tactics. Instead, they had encountered warriors who combined advanced training with deliberately primitive equipment, soldiers who understood that sometimes the oldest weapons were still the deadliest. The news of the victory spread across Earth like wildfire. 20 Rangers had held off an invasion force of 2,000 aliens, proving that humanity could fight back against enemies who possessed superior technology. The psychological impact was immeasurable, demonstrating to both humans and aliens that technological advancement was no guarantee of military success. More importantly, the battle provided valuable intelligence about alien weaknesses and capabilities. Their energy shields were vulnerable to kinetic weapons, their electronics could be disrupted by electromagnetic pulse, and their tactics were predictable when faced with unconventional opposition. Captain Henderson stood in the debriefing room, looking at faces that reflected a mixture of exhaustion, pride, and grim satisfaction. His Rangers had accomplished something that military theorists would study for generations, proving that human ingenuity and determination could overcome seemingly impossible odds. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "today you've shown the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly into the night. You've proven that our species has something that all their advanced technology cannot replace, the warrior spirit that refuses to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds." Outside, the war continued. Other alien forces were landing on Earth, and humanity would face many more battles in the months to come. But the precedent had been set. The galaxy had learned that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be, that they possessed capabilities and determination that made them far more dangerous than their technology level suggested. The 20 Rangers had done more than survive an impossible battle. They had announced humanity's arrival as a force to be reckoned with in a galaxy that had seriously underestimated the species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. The alien legion was annihilated, but humanity's legend was just beginning.